What's going on, YouTube? This your boy Haywood Haynes. It's another installment of Facts Over Feelings. Leave your feelings at the door so we can get to the facts. We got a heavy topic, and obviously, it might ruffle a little feathers, as you can see from the title. But hey, we got to get to it. We got to be transparent with each other. We got to be perfectly honest, because this is the only way that we're gonna make it through it. This is what'll help clear a lot of the fog, because what you see is that people are so diametrically opposed to one another. There's no way that you're going to reach a compromise. Not at all, because we're being led astray by people who know, and this is the reason for white guilt. Like I told you, and I come right off the back and I'll provide evidence. The reason for white guilt is because they know that they're lying to you. That's the reason for white guilt. They know that things are set up for the lie. And we always talk about the most dangerous aspect of a lie, or the most dangerous thing about a lie, is that more often than not, it is the truth before it becomes a lie. The person or the group of people or a nation of people or a way of living is brought to them as truth until they have to discover or unearth the veracity, or it questions the veracity, that is, and you come out to understand that it is a falsehood. That's what's so disturbing about it. It's just like a child when they found out that the Easter Bunny doesn't exist, or Santa Claus, or the Tooth Fairy. At 1, 2, 3 years old, it's a nice story to tell them, but a lot of times this is their world. We fail to realize they create this myopic view, and this is a large part of their world, their imagination, and you ruin that, because you've captured it. You've given them a figure that does not exist, and now they have to come to terms or grips with dealing with a part of their reality that has to be relegated just to their childhood. It doesn't translate into the greater understanding of life. So it's a waste of time. So why do we do it anyways? The point being is that ultimately, even a person in a relationship, you deal with this individual based on what he or she has told you. Okay? And then until you see otherwise, then you begin to learn that you've lived a lie. Was it your fault? Were you a co-conspirator, or were you the victim? I'll let you decide. We're not going to argue that, but one thing that we will understand about this is that it's a lie no matter how you cut, slice, and dice it. And those on the top know. I will take 3 aspects of life activity, or 3 areas of life activity, that is, to show you and prove to you that they knew they were lying, that most of them know that they're lying. Most of them know that they're lying, and we're not going to talk about black man envy and none of that. We're going to hit on some hard concepts, some hard to chew concepts, and I'm going to try to get it down to baby food if I can. If not, if you need baby formula, then I suggest you go to another channel, because there's only so much that I can do. Pause. One thing I want you to know is that you have to understand the world is ruled by signs and symbols. If you don't understand that, please, this ain't the show for you. All right? Unpause. Part of this that I'm going to go into, we're going to start off first with politics, because that seems to be the hot topic nowadays. Obviously, it's what we have to pay attention to. November is creeping up, and then so we have people divided. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, okay, I changed my mind, I'm going to vote for Trump. Some people are still saying, I'm not going to vote for Trump, I support Biden. Regardless of who you're supporting, the fact of the matter is you still don't understand how politics work. Why do we have to understand how politics work? Because if we still endorse the top-down philosophy where you think that something is going to come, or benefits will come in terms of long-term benefits from the federal government down to the state level, then you're sadly mistaken. What you have to understand, and I hope you understand this from this pandemic, that the person in power is your governor. The person in power is your governor. So what I'm about to tell you is something that they teach you in Politics 101. And obviously you have access to it if you took the time to be looking at it instead of some video where you're seeing some girl do her makeup. So the reality of it is this, is when, or watching sports highlights. So I'm not just going to pick on the women. We're talking about the men too. We're talking about our people. We're lost. We have access to this information, yet we choose to be entertained by other things. But the fact of the matter is this, is that you have a tier system, and we know how their political system, how it's set up. That tier system seems complicated for some, but they left the opening, and that loophole is what you're supposed to take advantage of. What am I talking about? Let's just isolate 2 individuals from that tier system. We'll take the Attorney General. Now, the Attorney General, I'm just speaking for the state of Michigan, because I don't know how your state operates. You'd have to look at your state constitution and how things are set up. But in terms of how things are set up here in Michigan, the Attorney General is the 4th one in power, 4th seat of power, right? The Attorney General, in order to be an Attorney General, you have to have certain qualifications. One of those qualifications will be a lawyer. Okay, what does it take to be a lawyer? All right, you have 4 years in undergraduate school, you have 3 years as a in law school, and then you have to get approved by the bar. All right. Now and then you have to garner political experience and also experience in your field. So let's just say about 10 or 15, let's give it 15 years. All right. So 15 years, you were elected to attorney general, because here in the state of Michigan, it has to be through a general election. All right. All up until 1950, before 1950, the governor was the one who positioned that individual in that seat of power. But after 1950, the attorney general had to be elected by the people. So every 4 years in the state of Michigan, you have the governor has to be elected or reelected. You have the lieutenant governor has to be elected through popular vote. You have the attorney general that has to be elected through popular vote. The secretary of state has to be elected through popular vote. And then you have members of the House of Representatives and the members of the House of the Senate that has to go up for election too. So these are the people you need to be elected. Look at these startling numbers. Almost 50% or half of the nation participates in voting for the president, but less than 10% gets involved in state or local elections. That's ridiculous. So where you're at, so you're telling me you have individuals who are county prosecutors, because the head prosecutor will be the attorney general. So these county prosecutors come in, they have to be elected. So when you complain about, oh, look, they're giving out stiff sentences, these judges have to be elected. Where are you at? So if you're not going to become a judge or rear your children to be judges or lawyers or county prosecutors or the secretary of state, or if you're not going to rear them to do that, look, I didn't even tell you about the loophole yet. So think about that. Now, all those years that it takes to be the attorney general, and yet you're still only the fourth seat of power in this government, in this institutional framework. You're only the fourth seat of power. Now, what are the qualifications to be a governor? I actually really say 3, but 4, because you should already know this. But like I said, I can't sit up here and assume that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Somebody's sending me some messages. Anyways, point being is that that message just started. Why am I doing this video? The point being is that when you look at what the qualifications for governor are, the qualifications, I say 4 because, like I said, like I just mentioned, a lot of people don't take this into consideration. Hopefully you know that you have to be an American citizen, first of all. Okay, so really there's 3. And the 3 are 4 years you have to live in the state of Michigan. Just 4 years, okay, before you run. You only have to be 30 years old and have no felonies. So think about, that's the loophole that they created, because it's based on this city-state philosophy from the Greco-Roman era, where the city-states had all the power. And you had a small central government. You see what I'm saying? And so this is, or if you had a central government at all, you probably just had powerful city states. But this was that grand experiment where they had power, where the power is being shared. It's called the sharing of powers. Okay? And so the reality of it is, it still tipped the scale. The Bill of Rights tipped the scale in favor of the people via the states, so that any powers that were not given did not mean that they did not exist. It just meant that those powers be given to the people. I believe that's the 10th Amendment. Okay? So what we have to understand is that the states have their own sovereignty, have their own constitution. We've already, acknowledged that. So the governor being the top head, the head of this tier system, could easily be something that's attainable to the black community or any community that has vied for power. All that money within our community, we didn't rear nobody up in the last 5 or 10 years that could have ran for governor. You see, I can honestly say in my city in Kalamazoo, I've seen a couple of people, the city that I used to live in, the city that I'm from, I've seen a couple individuals from our community get involved in politics, and even more so, as time has moved on. But I don't know if that's all for the right reasons, so I'm not even going to get into all of that. So what I'm saying is that the highest level where you can really affect change doesn't require you to go through a whole hell of a lot. And it did that for a reason, because we know absolute power corrupts absolutely. So many of these people who may have this power and know the law may subvert it. So it's only right for somebody to be in the most powerful position that may be balanced, that can really connect with the people and be of the people. And the people will be ruled by someone who resonates with them, not someone who may get lost in their discipline, like an attorney. Or like a judge, or anyone who, and that's why that position should be so coveted. It should be coveted by individuals like us. But yet they know that, because they teach this in Politics 101. But yet through the media, what they propagate to you is top-down politics. You see, we should be electing our share. So if not, they infiltrate us. So this is why I'm telling you that's why they make sure that you're ignorant of politics. And you think it's some boring class, but then yet nothing gets done in your personal life. And you wish somebody would do this and wish somebody would do that. You're talking about reform the police. If one of our people was governor, we could easily reform the police. She's the head of the state police. She's the head of the National Guard. Okay? And you look at what the Attorney General does, you have to elect the Attorney General. Any law that is passed by by Congress, or any law that is passed any law that is passed by your state or attempted to be passed by your state, or any law that is attempted to be, or an executive order that is pushed through by the governor, has to be given, the opinion of the Attorney General has to be given on that matter. So that's why that's an especially coveted position too, because any laws that will be made, if it don't agree with if it doesn't coincide with the trajectory that you see that your community is on, then that could be shot down if one of your people are the Attorney General. You see what I'm saying? Anything like, now that's what the Attorney General responsibility is here in the state of Michigan when that $600 million lawsuit was filed on behalf of the people in Flint for that contaminated water. She has to take care of that. You see, so this is what I'm talking about. They know that these positions, you relieve them this responsibility because you're stuck in the slave mentality talking about what some party what didn't or should do for you. You're supposed to participate on a local level because you send these people to Washington. Your senators you send to Washington. Your governor you send to Washington. So if you're sending them to Washington, what the heck do you got to talk to Trump for in the first place? It's called a democratic republic. Democracy, you don't live in a complete democracy. Democracy is mob rule. Republic is representatives, people who represent you. You already got people to represent you. Why are they not working for you? That's the question. How did they convince you that you can vote for somebody on the top tier and they didn't already acknowledge that the states have the power, the people have the power? You're supposed to be an advocate for limited government because, as you see, when the government is allowed to do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, it's not a good thing. They lied to you and they know they're lying to you. And other white folks who now come across this information, they get enraged. They're the ones who write books about it. And we'll get into another individual who I see as a revolutionary, a part of his people, but also for us too as well, because we can use that information. It has utility. Okay, but what we're discussing right now is politics, and we understand that, and from a political perspective, that political theater that we see ourselves entertained by is exactly all it is. See all these people, they got thousands of subscribers and they get millions of views talking garbage about politics because they know nothing about it. And then that's the way, as for the information that I just presented to you, that's the way for you to find out what it is about these individuals, or if these individuals are working for you or working against you, if they're true revolutionaries. So when you got somebody who's saying, voting don't matter, then you know that that's a shield because, come on now, voting does matter. You're buying into the convenient truth. If our people were sitting up here becoming a sheriff, in some states you have, people can run for sheriff just being 18 years old, no police experience. See, you got to know where you live at to get that change that you desire. Otherwise, you're working backwards and you're buying into the lie. Because remember what we said, we're not talking about the children or the white people who possess that childlike mentality where they still think Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all that still exists, where they're living the lie and then obviously propagating the lie to their children, indoctrinating their children with it, and then running around trying to be involved in marches and protests where they're still spewing out the lie. Come on, if you want the real change, there's ways to go about doing it. It's already written. So that's what we need to know. And then so when we go into, like I said, what encouraged me to even put all of this together was it was a discussion that I was having with my sister. And also we're going to go into religion a little bit. No, pause. I don't know if I even mentioned this, but I got to give a little bit of information on the side before I even go off into that. Now, because what did I say? What our system essentially is, just another phase of Greco-Roman rulership. Greco-Roman Empire still existing as America. That's exactly what it is. You see it in our cities, like we talked about, Minneapolis and Indianapolis. Now, what did I say about symbolism? Double pause. The world is ruled by signs and symbols. If you're not ready for that or you don't know what that is, get off the channel. Unpause the double pause. Now, we're talking about Minneapolis and Minneapolis relationship to LA, which is ridiculous because we think that all this stuff is that sports are a public showcase of their rituals. That's the only reason why I watch. And I don't watch avidly. I just stay focused on things because everything is a part of their ritual. This is a huge ceremony. that we find ourselves involved in, and we find ourselves participating in their rituals, whether it's through their holidays or watching their sport teams, etc. And I broke that down in another video when I talked about how Henry Ford, he disliked the Jews and Catholics, and because John F. Kennedy was a Catholic, the first Catholic president, what did he do? He purchased the Lions on November 22nd, 1963. But then I digress. What I was talking about with Minneapolis, and when you split that term apart, because it's actually two terms conflated together in order to make a name. Many is a Sioux Indian tribe term, which means many waters. And Apolis, or Polis, polis, is city in Greek, city states. Indianapolis, Minneapolis. So you had the Minneapolis Lakers. Okay, they started that team up in 1947. Okay, and then they moved it to LA in 1960. 13 years, there go your number again. And then so you had 22 lakes here in Minneapolis. Okay, pause. In Minneapolis, you know, when you look at water, you know that they have 22 lakes. Water is symbolism. We know this from looking at the Bible. We know that what God had, you know, to create the earth, he started moving the waters to and fro. To destroy the earth, he created the flood first. To, you know, when Jesus tried to feed people, he turned water to wine, or he was out of ceremony, turned water to wine. When you see Moses to free his people, he split the Red Sea. Water is symbolism. Unpause. So now you have Minneapolis also as a hub or a center for paganism, witches, Wiccans. They have a community of witches. I think that number in, I think 20,000. Did you know that? Okay, lakes symbolize the connect or the separation or the small window between the mortal realm and the underbelly or the underground. Okay, lot of symbolism, but especially it's, you know, it's always in proximity to people who practice magic. That's always been the tales. You look at fairy tales and all that different stuff in the woods and next to waters and bodies of water. That's what you have to understand. So the reality of it is they kept the name because they understood the symbolism. That's why you're not going to see the Lakers. The Lakers is just one name. You don't even say the Los Angeles Lakers, even though we know Los Angeles, especially southern LA, does not have any lakes that I know of. And it's not as numerous as obviously we know Minneapolis to have. Okay? And so they kept the name. And so who died off the Lakers in 2020? All right. Now, who foot was on who neck in 2020 in Minneapolis? You see the connection? You see how they do their magic? All right, and that's all. I'll leave it at that. I'll go in deeper in another video that I'm putting, I'm putting together. So we'll touch on that because it's just, I don't do surface level, but I wanted to kind of tease you a little bit with where I'm going with this. So hopefully that excites you. Point being is that when you take a look at the how it was structured, we talk about the Greco-Roman influence, and we still have our cities named after them. And we still have that culture alive and well. So when these individuals, had begun to take over, a lot of people still had these questions. Where are these individuals from? Where was the so-called Jews from? All of this different stuff. People had no clue. So we didn't see them pop up until this century. The reason why is because they were Greeks. The Jews are the Greeks. You are being ruled by Greeks Jews who real culture is the Greco-Roman era. That's why they pride it so much. If you notice, let's take a look at the Bible. So now we're going to go to the second phase of this, and we're going to discuss this before this video is out, is the second phase of the takeover, which is they had to take over the manuscript. All right. The manuscript was originally supposedly written in Hebrew, which is a Semitic language. And the Semitic languages come from the Afro-Asiatic tongue. Remember, we talked about the language groups, the 6 largest living language families. You have the Niger-Congo, you have Austronesian, you have the Trans-Tibetan, Trans-New Guinea, Sino-Tibetan, Indo-European, and Afro-Asiatic. Afro-Asiatic, and the only reason why Indo-European, like we said before, is up there because of conquest, right? When you are able to get people to speak your language, the more they will have to buy into the interpretation of a document because that's the language that they speak. The document is in that tongue. When it's in another tongue, it gets a different interpretation. As like you see another language, like we say, oh my God, that's called an idiomatic expression in English. A saying that you know in your tongue. So everybody knows what happens when you say, oh my God. It also depends on the context. If you're saying, oh my God, and somebody got shot, that's a different, oh my God, if you're having sex. Okay, so we know. We just put it like that. Point being is that in Spanish, I think it said, oh Dios mío, or something like that. So it literally translates in English to, oh God, my. So if I literally translated that to you from Spanish to English, you would be like, that don't make no sense. But since we know that when you roll over an idiomatic expression to somebody else's language, it has to be structured the way that they would say it. And they know what you're talking about because that's how their language is structured. But if you translated it technically from Spanish to English, it wouldn't make any sense to you. That was the problem that they were having. Because in Hebrew, they had no vowels in the language. So for those who I think may know, but don't, pause. The alphabet is with consonants and vowels. Anything that's not a vowel is considered a consonant. So consonant. So you have A, E, I, O, U. Those are vowels. And then you have the rest is consonants. Okay. The Hebrew language had no vowels. So imagine the word there, T-H-E-R-E. Imagine the vowels taken out, all the E's. Now try to pronounce there. You couldn't do it. See, that's the problem that they had. It's like, oh, this language is holy. We can't break it down, or we have no references and this, that, and the other. We can't bring God's name is too holy to be pronounced. That's where you have Yahweh or YHWH. Okay? That's called the Tetragrammaton. YHWH didn't have any vowels in it. Those are just consonants. So they didn't know how to pronounce God's name. Jehovah is JHVH. Jehovah, since there's no J in Hebrew, that's why they have the J and the V. So when you put the vowels in, you have Jehovah. Jehovah is the Latinized version of Yahweh. Okay, so now that you know that, but what you don't know is that, like what we do, it's hidden in plain sight. What do most people, the Bible is studied from the Greek scriptures. Most know those versions. Okay, you go from the Septuagint. Okay, the Septuagint means 70, but it actually comes down to 72. And that was a declaration made by a guy named one of the Ptolemies. That something is Ptolemy first to Soter. Ptolemy first to Soter, right? But most scholars agree that it was Ptolemy the second of Philadelphus. Now, this Ptolemy had petitioned Jews, Greek-speaking Jews, to translate from Hebrew into Greek the Bible. And they came up with the Septuagint. So they took 6 scholars from each of the 12 tribes of Israel to get the number 72. And they came up with the Septuagint. All right? They came up with the Septuagint. And the Septuagint was the authority. Because now as Greece loses power, the Greeks lose power, Rome comes into power. But you have to understand, there was really that's why they call it Greco-Roman. Because when you look at the Roman Empire, you have the left of the Roman Empire being controlled by Greek-speaking Jews. Okay? And then you have the right side being the Latin is spoken. So that's when they had to come up with what was called the Latin Vulgate. All right? Pope Samsus had petitioned St. Gregory. No, not St. Gregory. St. Jerome, I'm sorry. St. Gregory was the one who sent the expedition up to England to, proselytize the English and so forth and so on. Okay, I think in the 6th century. But this is St. Jerome. St. Jerome, what he did was he took he had the Hebrew text supposedly. He had other Latin versions, and he also had the Septuagint. And so he took the Greek version and then translated it into Latin for the western part of the Roman Empire, to convert the western part of the Roman Empire. That's why you have the Greek scriptures. Okay? So this is what they know. They know that they have to fit into it. Remember, we talked about the Fertile Crescent, that area, that what they call the cradle of civilization, that area where you have Iran and Syria and Israel and Jordan and Egypt, which they took Egypt out of Africa, claimed it was the Middle East. Why? Because when you look on the map, who borders Egypt? Israel. Why? Your question should be, why is Israel bordering a country that they claim biblically God let them out of? Okay? And you're right next to it. You're bordering it. How far did you go? See, this is where we have to go. This is where we have to let you know that they knew that it was a lie. They had to tell the lie. And this is where we're going into the religious part of it. The religious part of it would be phenomenal. I'm trying to finish it up in about 7 minutes. The religious part is phenomenal because, see, when you pay attention and do your research, then everything it makes itself visible to you. Okay, so now we've already discussed who these people really actually are. We've identified who the Jews are. They're the Greeks. The Septuagint was translated by Greek Jews, Greek-speaking Jews. Okay, translated it from Hebrew because they all of a sudden had the power. They claimed nobody spoke Hebrew, so they had to guess. So what they did, this is very important. Walk with me on this. This is important. What they did was take certain consonants too that sounded like vowels. See, now you have, look, you have A. A we know is a vowel, but B, C, D is not vowels. Those are consonants, right? So, but they have vowels in them. You can't say B, C, D without E, the vowel E. That's how they would try to figure out what was said in these texts, by putting consonants, and sometimes they would put vowels, sometimes they would put accent marks, but they were careful because they didn't know what it meant. They didn't know how to pronounce it. Okay? So then you have some individuals called the Masoretes, or traditionalists as they call themselves. This was what's called the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text is the official rabbinical text of Judaism. It's what they call the authority. The Masoretic text is actually called, is the Tanakh. Okay? Now, the Tanakh is considered to be the 24 books. Now, they don't call it the Old Testament. They just call it the Tanakh. What you call the Old Testament, they call the Tanakh. Okay, and it consists of 24 books. The Old Testament that we're familiar with through the Protestant church are 39 books. So they don't have extra books. They just stretched it out. See, they started to make, paragraphs or stop here or create other books. That's how they get 39. They didn't add any books. They just, that's how they structured their Old Testament. Okay. And so with the Masoretic text, the Tanakh is split up into 24 books. The first 5 books is called the Torah or the Pentateuch. Oh, we finna get into it, man. I hope I got enough time for this because I only got 30 minutes. Oh, the Pentateuch. Okay, meaning 5. Pause. I hate that I have to pause, but I got to do it. The Pentateuch or Penta is just where you get the pentagram. All right, this is the power of symbols. Double pause. The world is ruled by signs and symbols. Unpause the double pause. The Pentateuch, pentagram. Penta means 5 in Greek. Gram means letter. 5 letters. Okay, this is why you see that star is symbolic of man, or the elements, earth, water, air, fire. And then the 5th one being spirit. Okay? And then so what happens is that this is benevolent. Remember we said the world is ruled by signs and symbols. When the Jews hold the 5-point star in the seal of David, it is seen as what? A holy symbol. But when you look on TV and you see a star, a 5-point star in a circle and people dressed in black, what is it? It's satanic. When you see the 5-point star and the crescent moon, what is it? It's revered. It's Islamic. You see what I'm saying? Whoever holds the power to the symbol, we know that with the swastika. We know that was not a symbol that originated with Hitler, but they yielded the power to it. You can go, we know about that science, so I'm not going to go off into that. So the point being is that they knew that they had to, as they were, conducting military campaigns, because this is why they took out the book of Maccabees and all this different stuff, because it talked about how Alexander the Great went around Northeast Africa and started subduing these lands, okay? Tying themselves into the lineage of the pharaohs, splitting up and then geographically doing what? Taking away the country. So this is what I talked about before. They took Egypt out of Africa, put it in the Middle East because Israel borders it. And if you believe the biblical stories, then you have to believe that that's where the Middle East is and that's where the Jews come from. Now, 2 things are very wrong with that. What are the 2 things that are very wrong with that, Heru? The 2 things that are very wrong with that is that, 1, they couldn't survive in that zone. That's called the Tropic of Cancer. Okay, anything about the climate, that temperature stays from 75 degrees all year round. 12 hours a day typically is when there's sunlight. Even. There's no way people with a lighter complexion can be able to live in that area. Okay, 2, we know it to be a societal construct that's just called, now, pause. How many people know where the Sinai Peninsula is? Okay, that should be a good question to you. Why? Because the Sinai Peninsula is in Egypt. The Sinai Peninsula, they say that Moses went up to Mount Sinai. Now dig this, we have to go back. Now look how they conflict with themselves. They said that Moses had split the Red Sea, led his people out of Egypt, then went up to Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments. Okay, went up to Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments, comes down, and that's why they had to name it the Sinai Peninsula. But if you notice, the Sinai Peninsula is in Egypt. Egypt is shaped like this, and then it comes down. The bottom half of Egypt has water. That's why it's called a peninsula. But they took that out of Egypt and called it the Sinai Peninsula. That's why Israel has to be bordered next to Egypt, because the very father, the very person who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, supposedly, he went right up to a mountain right next door and got 10 commandments. So even though it didn't exist, I had to make it exist because I already had documents that said it existed. That's what you need to know. So ultimately, this is what we're going through understanding, is that they took the manuscripts that they said that was from an unintelligible language, nobody spoke it anymore. They filled in the accents and the vowels and the consonants and stuff like that, came up with who they wanted it to represent, and said that they were the chosen people, tied themselves into a lineage of a chosen people, the copper-colored people, okay? And then this is how they got their identity. All right, but they know at their heart the real them are the Greeks and the Romans. All right, but they know the lie. The second part of the reason why I'm telling you that they know about the lie. They know the lie. They teach the lie. You see, so they're cognizant of it. You're walking around thinking that these people don't know the lie. They are fully aware of it. All right, so I'm gonna get into the second part of this, and we're gonna go off into kind of cleaning up the religion aspect and why they know it's a lie, and then we're gonna go into the sciences. We're gonna split that up into 2 categories, or in two segments, within the segment, into 2 chapters within the segment. So just stick with your boy, this Hebrew Haters. Let's go, and we getting it.